Hi, I'm Anthony Trujillo, Senior Suspension Engineer on the Specialized Mountain Bike Suspension Team. In order to maximize your riding experience, I'm here to guide you through fine-tuning your suspension on your Specialized 2008 Epic or Era. Setting up the suspension on your new 2008 Epic or Era is an easy 5-step process.
The first step is to prep your Epic or Era correctly. That will ease the process of setting up your suspension. Second, set the air pressure for the fork and rear shock. Third, measure the suspension sag and adjust air pressures if necessary. Fourth, set your rebound. Last, set your brain fade. This process can be performed anywhere and only requires the following items: a high-pressure suspension bicycle pump, the sagometer included with your 2008 Epic or Era, a measuring tape, the hex key that matches your seat post clamp, the suspension owner's manual, and your riding gear, including your hydration pack full with water. Your riding kit, including your hydration system, is an optional item to simulate actual riding weight during the suspension setup.
The first step to setting up your suspension correctly is to prep your Epic or Era.
Make sure to clean any dirt or residue on the suspension components that may interfere with the movement or visibility of the travel indicator O-rings or damping adjustment knobs. Once clean, move the travel indicator O-rings to the dust wipers on both the fork and rear shock. These travel indicator O-rings indicate how much your suspension moves during riding. If you don't have any O-rings, attach a small zip tie around one of the fork legs or on the shock body. Now adjust your seat to your proper ride height. Next, I'll walk you through the pre-adjustment of the fork and rear shock. Starting at the rear shock, turn the blue compression knob on the reservoir entirely clockwise to the full firm setting. Then back this knob out counterclockwise 1 full revolution. The same process applies to the rebound knob on the rear shock eyelet extension. Turn the knob entirely clockwise to the full slow setting. Then back this knob out counterclockwise 2 full revolutions. Moving to the front fork, turn the blue compression lockout lever located on the top right fork leg entirely counterclockwise to the full open setting. Turn the red rebound knob located on the top of the right fork leg entirely clockwise to the full slow setting, then counterclockwise 12 clicks.
Now that your 2008 Epic or Era has been prepped, we're ready for step 2, setting the air pressure according to your weight.
For a precise adjustment, wear all riding gear including hydration system when weighing yourself to determine the correct pressure setting. Have the suspension owner's manual open with the weight to air pressure matrix visible. Starting with the rear shock, remove the air valve cover located beneath the red rebound knob. Carefully screw the pump head onto the air valve and measure the current pressure in the shock. Compare your current pressure with the recommended initial pressure to weight setting in the manual. You will need to inflate or deflate your shock to obtain the correct pressure to weight setting. To add pressure, gently pump the handle to the recommended initial pressure setting. To deflate air pressure in the shock, gently press the pressure release button on the pump in short increments to obtain the recommended initial pressure setting. Now, carefully unscrew the high-pressure suspension pump. For the time being, you can leave the air valve cover off the rear shock until your sag is properly adjusted. Moving to the Fox fork, remove the air valve cover located on the top of the left fork leg. Carefully screw the pump head onto the air valve and measure the current pressure in the fork. Compare your current pressure with the recommended initial pressure to weight setting in the manual. Like the shock, you will need to inflate or deflate your fork to obtain the correct pressure to weight setting. Just like before, to add pressure, gently pump the handle to the recommended setting. To deflate, press the pressure release button to get the correct setting. For the time being, you can leave the air valve cover off the fork until your sag is properly adjusted.
The next step is to measure and, if necessary, adjust the sag on both the fork and shock. To measure, you will want a location where you can gently roll on your bike in a seated position 3 to 5 meters or 9 to 15 feet.
You will also need your sagometer included with your 2008 Epic or 2008 Era, and either a tape measure or ruler. First, ensure your travel indicator O-rings are pushed up against the fork and shock dust wipers. Then, carefully mount your bike as to not compress the suspension more than your body weight. Roll or pedal softly in your seated riding position to help balance your weight on the bike. After rolling 9 to 15 feet, carefully dismount the bike. Look at your shock and use the sagometer included with your Epic or Era to measure the distance between the shock dust wiper and travel indicator O-ring. Your sag is set properly if the O-ring falls within the groove of the sagometer as shown. If the O-ring is above the groove in the sagometer, you have too much air pressure in the shock for your weight. Remedy this by decreasing air pressure in the shock with the pump. If the O-ring falls below the groove in the sagometer, you have too little air pressure in the shock for your weight. Remedy this by adding air pressure with the pump. If you needed to increase or decrease pressure, push the O-ring against the rear shock dust wiper. Gently sit on the bike, roll a few meters, and remeasure with the sagometer.
Repeat this process until you have the right amount of shock sag.
The steps for setting sag are the same for the fork as the shock, except the fork is measured with a ruler or measuring tape. The O-ring should be between 23 and 28 millimeters from the fork dust wiper for the recommended initial sag setting. If the O-ring is above 28 millimeters, you must add pressure with the pump. If the O-ring is below 23 millimeters, you must decrease pressure with the pressure release valve on the pump.
Reset the O-ring with the dust wiper each time an adjustment is made to obtain a new accurate measurement.
After setting your sag, make sure you screw both air valve covers for the shock and fork back on.
Now that you have set your sag, you are ready to dial in the rebound and compression damping. Let's begin with the rebound.
For the initial setting of the specific air pressure, refer to your owner's manual. For a faster rebounding shock, turn the red rebound knob counterclockwise. For a slower rebounding shock, turn the red rebound knob clockwise. Similar to the shock, set your rebound on the fork by turning the red knob counterclockwise for a faster rebound and clockwise for a slower rebound. Feel free to experiment on the trail, and remember that 1 to 2 clicks of the rebound knob for both the fork and shock can have a large effect in the ride characteristics of your suspension. The last step in your Epic or Era suspension setup is adjusting your compression settings. Because the specialized brain technology does most of the thinking for you, we recommend one setting for the given terrain you are riding. Just set it and forget it.
Starting with the shock, we recommend a full firm setting for hard pack and asphalt terrain.
To set your compression to full firm, turn the blue knob located on the shock reservoir clockwise to the full firm setting. For loose gravel or muddy terrain, we recommend turning the blue knob on the reservoir a 1/4 to 3/4 revolution counterclockwise from the full firm setting.
The fork can be switched to lockout for climbing or asphalt. Otherwise, we recommend the open position for all other types of riding.
Turn the blue compression lockout lever located atop the right fork leg clockwise for a full lockout. Turn the same lever counterclockwise for a full open position.
Your Epic or Era is now ready and set to ride.
Make sure to monitor and adjust the compression and rebound settings accordingly. For further in-depth knowledge about suspension theory and the suspension on your 2008 Epic or Era, go to specialized.com and click on the suspension section of the site.